Good morning. It is Friday the 18th. Welcome to Nadine at 9 in the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Arts Studio, live at Damn Radio. Did you know that there is a Damn Radio app for Apple and Android, if you're one of those people? There is. And if you set up to get notifications, it will send you a push notification, I think almost every day, because we have great shows on almost every day of the week. Multiple shows, actually. Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 is the big show with JR. And then through the week, there's International Flavor with Sam Trapp. There's All About Cars with Jack. There's Radio Free Missouri on Wednesday nights with Ike Skelton. There's the Fitzwell Factor on Thursday nights. And then me on Friday mornings at 9, Nadine at 9. And you can end your week with Polly's Bomb Track Bunker on Saturday nights from 8 to 10. You know, when I was younger, that was around the time that I was, kind of like getting ready to go out. Now it's the time that I'm getting ready to go to bed. But whatever you're doing at that time on a Saturday evening, you can have some tunes to go along with it with Polly's Bomb Track Bunker. So anyway, go to your app store, download the Damn Radio app, and get push notifications so you never miss a show. And also, I have recently started a Substack. I'm still working it out, but now you can listen to my shows without draining your battery by keeping YouTube on constantly. So that's exciting. And I believe that actually gets uploaded to Apple Podcasts, and it might be Google Podcasts. I'm not sure what the other one is. I apologize. But either way, you can find me at those places now. I will be uploading those every Friday afternoon, so you can hear what you missed or share what you'd like other people to hear. You know, I've told you several times the reason why I'm doing this show is because I felt like it was the platform that God had given me. And so I'm not trying to promote myself. I just really want to make sure that people are getting the information that needs to get out. And I have some great people that come on the show to get interviewed, to share that information. And so please make sure that you share my show. And today we are going to be talking about Proposition A, which is going to be on our ballot in November. And I was just going to go over real quick. So the difference between an amendment, because there's going to be four amendment questions, I believe, or 5 amendment questions. 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so 5 amendment questions and then 1 Proposition A. And so Proposition A, instead of being an amendment to our Constitution, would actually become a state statute. So it's basically like a citizen-led law that people are voting on that would become law for our state. So I'm having Kate come on to talk about Prop A because I don't know a lot about it. However, I did print it off last night, and it took 10 pages to print it off, even though when we go to vote, the ballot language, of course, is basically 1 paragraph. It took me 8 pages to print off the entire proposition. That to me right there is a red flag. Honestly, even if it's something that I am in favor of, if I am only voting and the entire population is only voting on a very small snippet of what's actually going to become law or what's actually going to go into our Constitution, then I'm not going to pass it. I'm not going to vote in favor of it because I don't believe that is accurately informing the general population of what's going to happen. So we're going to talk with Kate a little bit more about it because there's a lot to this proposition, and we'll save more of that till she comes on. It is 18 days till election. I don't know if you're tired of all the election talk. If you're not really one that enjoys politics, I apologize, but that is what we're going to be discussing for the next few weeks still, because it's important. And whether you like it or not, it's important. And we need to make sure that everyone is getting well informed, well educated, so that way we can hopefully have some things change in our country this time around. But I also wanted to just strongly recommend to people, and I know this is somewhat controversial sometimes. I mean, not like hardcore controversial, but there's difference of opinions with it, especially among Republicans, I think. But early voting in Missouri starts October 22nd, which is this coming Tuesday. Please go and vote as soon as you can. I am basically just kind of like repeating what I've been hearing from a lot of people that I listen to and respect. And I used to kind of not really be super in favor of voting early, just because I feel like we had one day for elections for years and years, and it worked really well. And I didn't know why we needed to add 2 weeks, or in some states it's even more than that, of no excuse early voting. I understand having the absentee ballots as long as they are being properly verified. But my opinion of early voting has changed quite a bit over the past few years, and especially listening to a lot of the people that I respect that are talking about the reasons to early vote, I do agree with them. And this might sound conspiratorial to you, and maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, we live in a fallen world, so there are conspiracies. And I just think that if you have the opportunity to go and vote early, you should, because you have no idea what is coming on election day. So get up and go vote. Take your kids with you. If you especially like I'm a homeschool parent, I take my son with me when I go and vote, and he loves it. And the ladies working at the polls love it, and the ladies working at the clerk's office love it. And I feel like, those are really great steps for kids to be a part of, so that way they start taking pride in that process early on. So if you do not know where to go and vote early, I know in my county, Miller County, it's at the courthouse, which is in Tuscumbia. I would assume early voting happens at the courthouse in Camden County. There might be other places in the counties that it happens as well, so you can just call the clerk's office. Usually that information is pretty easy to find if you just want to look up, for example, my county, Miller County, Missouri clerk's office. And make sure that you include the state, because there are a lot of other states with the same counties, and you want to make sure that you're calling the correct state. So Miller County, Missouri courthouse, clerk's office, Camden County, Morgan County, Dallas County, Leclerc County, whatever county it is, just give them a call, find out. And, I know that it might not feel the same as going the day of to vote, but you can just hold on to your sticker that you get and put it on in a couple of weeks on the voting Tuesday, November 5th. Or, you can just get a bunch of them and wear them every day until then. So you can vote early and vote often. That's what I want to keep saying, but not really. Just just vote early, vote once, and let's hopefully have a fair election. And until Miss Kate joins us in a few minutes, I also was going to talk for just a minute about some thoughts I had regarding President Trump, because I know that can be a little bit of, I mean, yes, it is divisive, I guess. People are on both sides of this issue for sure. But I do want to say that I've gone through a lot of just thinking through my options. And I'm not saying options meaning Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. I'm saying options of if there was another candidate that I supported more than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you why. Because as you know, if you've listened to my show for any amount of time, I'm very passionate about the pro-life issue. And I don't think that Trump and I are on the same page with that. Actually, I know that we're not. And so I've been a little bit discouraged with some of the things that he has come out recently and said. And actually, though, as I've realized from listening to others and looking back, he honestly hasn't really changed his stance that much. He's always had exceptions for rape and incest. As far as I know, he's always been okay with chemical abortion. So I don't know that he's really changed his stance. I think that he's using different tactics. And, at this point, the lack of involvement from pro-life Christians, I don't blame him. He's trying to win a presidency to save our country, and I do believe that that is what he's trying to do, because otherwise, why in the world would he be doing what he's doing? Because you might say, oh, it's power hungry, but I mean, there's only so much someone can take to just get power. I do believe that his ulterior motive is because he wants to fight for our country. And so I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you, that we really are in a very big battle here. And to me, one of the biggest battles is the life issue. But I know for a fact that Donald Trump and his administration will be much, much stronger on the pro-life issue than Kamala Harris and her administration. And I am going to take a step this election of where I want to be closer to in 25 years, and that would be voting for Donald Trump. So I just wanted to share all that to encourage all of you. It might feel like it's the lesser of two evils, which it is, because we all live in a fallen world, and there will never be a perfect person on the ballot. And until Jesus returns, there will never be a perfect person among us. So I just wanted to say, even though he might not be as on board pro-life as a lot of us would like, I do know that he will get us closer to those goals in the future. And so that's what I'm going to be basing my vote off of. And then also all of the other things, which I'm not going to get into all of those things, but all of the other things that I know for sure that he is absolutely on the side of our country, as opposed to Kamala Harris, who my son likes to say Kalama Harris, which I really like. It's not that he doesn't know her name. He just, for some reason, slipped out the other day, and so now it's fun to say Kalama. But I hope that you all will just consider those things as you pray and make a decision about who to vote for coming up soon. And we're going to talk with Miss Kate now. Good morning, Kate.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful. I am really looking forward to talking with you. So I'm glad that this worked out today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not an expert, but I have looked and tried to research this bill as much as possible.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
proposition.
Well, I mean, you're probably 15 steps ahead of most of us because you've actually looked at it. Most of the
Well,
time people don't even look at it.
and the thing is, this is going to affect every business and nonprofit and religious organization, churches, private schools, but it exempts government. And
Yeah,
being a business owner, I'm not going to mention my business though. Being a business owner, it's really, I mean, this last uh, minimum wage hike in 2018 to $12. I mean, that has really affected us, and it goes up every year anyway.
right.
This is just going to inflate that,
Yeah.
so
So before we dive into that, I want you
yeah.
to share just a little bit about who you are so our listeners know. And
Okay.
yeah, you don't have to share what your business is. That's perfectly fine, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But just so that way we can know you a little bit better as we listen to you.
We've been in the restaurant business since 1988, my husband and I, and we literally have opened restaurants, and we've been part of a chain for all those years too. So anyway, I mean,
Awesome.
what minimum wage has done to small business, and this bill is horrible.
Mhm. Mhm.
This prop is, and I was trying to find it, but I even read the other day that there's possibilities that this shouldn't have even been on the ballot, because like there's four different things in it, and usually for ballot initiatives it has to have just one. This is nine, and plus it's 9 pages. I
Yeah.
mean, it's ridiculous. So
I was
yeah.
just talking about that before I you came on, that I had printed it off last night, and it yeah, it was 8 or 9 pages. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it started as 10 and then I was able to condense it. But this is my big thing, and I feel like it should be everybody's big thing when these amendments and, now with a proposition come on the ballot,
Hmm.
is I'm looking at the proposition from the Secretary of State website, and it
Right.
says it says is amended by amending section 290.502 and enacting 15 new sections.
I
So
know.
when we go to vote, we have this tiny little ballot language, which, yes, again,
Hmm.
it does. It has 5 different points on it. But
Hmm.
I mean, it's adding 15 sections to state
Right.
law.
Right. Right. And I mean, and even the Business Chamber of Commerce is against this. So, and like, I
Mm.
don't know, but like, if you look on who proposed it, it
Mm-hmm.
was proposed, his name's Richard Von Glon, and he is a UCLA professor, teaching Chinese history. And he's been there since 1987. And then he's also a Missouri labor activist, and he's the policy director for Missouri Jobs and Justice, which is a very liberal
Mm-hmm. It
organization.
sounds like it. I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately, anytime I hear the word justice in something now, I'm kind of
I know,
like, ugh.
I know, I'm with you. So anyway,
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's
I've heard you say that before about him being a teacher at UCLA. So is he currently a teacher there?
yes, yeah.
So
I
he's
looked it up. He's been there since 1987. I even double checked last night. And yeah, he's a current professor. He's been there since 1987. He's written a lot of books on Chinese monetary stuff. And yeah.
okay. So he's a professor at UCLA, which is in
Yeah.
California,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
also part of a Missouri
Yes.
organ.
Uh, yeah, Missouri labor activist. And he's the policy director for Missouri Jobs with Justice. So, and like if you look at some of those other directors that are on there, I mean, they're affiliated with like um, organizations that are actually socialist organizations. I mean, if you look at the directors and go into their names, because I did like a couple of them, you know.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out why he
How?
would be a teacher in UCLA. Does he live in California?
Oh, okay. Well, this is who's funding it. That's another question. So who's funding this? It's being pushed by a group called Missourians for Healthy Families and Fair Wages. And the committee backing the minimum wage increase, they have raised 1.9 million in total donations for cash and in-kind services. And a large portion of the funding is in-kind donations from Missouri Jobs with Justice Action, a Soros-backed group. And then the 1630 fund is another major source. They gave $575,000 in 2023. And the Fairness Project, another Washington, D.C. based group that helps run liberal initiative campaigns, has contributed $250,000. Since Missouri last session did not get through the IP reform, which would make it
Mm-hmm.
harder to put ballot initiatives, this is what we got.
Yep.
We have, so outside groups, especially George Soros, I mean, he's funding that Amendment 3.
Yep.
I mean, it's just appalling that, that George Soros and groups like that are able to come into Missouri, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and do stuff. Right now, we on our minimum wage, it raises every year anyway. I mean, it because of 2018, they did a constitutional amendment that raises it every year with the what do you call it?
Is
I got to
it
think of
the
it.
Consumer Price Index?
Yes, the
Okay.
price index. It goes up every January. And when you raise minimum wage, you automatically have inflation because, businesses
Yep.
don't have free.
Mm-hmm.
We have to budget. We have to. So it's just very difficult. And every time I have talked to a business owner about this, they had no idea because they're so busy. We're
Right.
busy.
Right.
I work constantly, even though, I don't know. It's just crazy. And then I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and she was saying that her special needs sister-in-law has a job, and they've already said if this goes into effect, they're laying off her.
Right.
So it's
So
really, yeah.
let's dig into that a little bit because I feel like, and I was in kind of the minimum wage world for a while. I was a waitress for years, bartended for years. So I mean, honestly, I didn't really even make an hourly wage. I just worked off tips.
Right.
But so I've been in that world, and I can remember being back at that age, and I would have heard something like this and thought like, yeah, that's great. Let's increase my wage. So I want to dig into this a little bit and try and help
Okay.
people, maybe like late teens, early 20s, mid 20s. I don't, it seems like people are less mature the older they get these lately. But let's let's talk to them and try and explain why a minimum wage increase is not all that it's cracked up to be.
Right. Well, it doesn't leave any room for the employees that, are working harder and deserve raises. I mean, it doesn't leave room for that. This is a very socialist agenda. I mean, this is like, okay, everybody's going to make the same thing. And I mean, basically, it's a socialist idea because, the government is telling businesses what to pay
Mm-hmm. Except for
employees.
themselves.
Except for themselves. Yeah, I mean, because the government is exempt, all government entities, all public schools. So this is really going to hit churches and private schools too. So it's going to cost more to go to a private school, which they want. And
Mm-hmm.
why would the government exempt themselves?
Right.
You know what I mean? So what I did, I kind of went through each point on this. That was like the 5 points, and I
Yep.
kind of just did a little thing,
Okay. Yeah.
to myself, so anyway.
Yeah. Let's
But that's
hear
what
what
I
you
did.
have.
So
On
first it'll increase minimum wage January 1st, 2025 to 13.75, and then increase another $1.25 till 2026. And then minimum wage will be $15. And then after that, it will adjust minimum wage based on charges in the consumer price index each January beginning in 2027. And like I said, we already have this in effect since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
There's no stop either. So
Right.
minimum wage could go to $20, $30. I
Right.
mean, or higher. And this is it's massive increase, and it will affect all small businesses.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
sorry, I was just going to
yeah,
jump in because, you know, all these people that have moved here from especially coastal states or even, you know, just a
yep,
couple states away where they're trying to get away from this
from,
kind of stuff. So because,
yeah,
you know, the cost of living here is significantly cheaper.
right,
If this stuff goes into effect, it will be exactly the same as the states
exactly.
that they came from.
And right now, we're the 18th highest minimum wage in the country. If this goes into effect, we'll be the eighth. I mean, we'll be behind California, New York, Washington, D.C. I mean, all the liberal states, like you just said, people that have moved from them states to come here because we have a decent cost
Mm-hmm.
of living. You know, I, it's just really, this is nervous to me. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
me very nervous as a business owner. And I've talked to other people and they're very nervous. I mean, if you present this to people, they they have to see that this is not good. And like all the neighboring states except Illinois have a lower minimum wage than us. So if a
Mm-hmm.
business person is looking to start a business,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to look at a different state where it's more business friendly. And like I
Absolutely.
said, even the commerce business commerce is against this because of it not being a very business friendly
Right.
proposition, you know. So yeah,
Okay.
it's just
So let's keep
scary.
going down your 5 points because I
Oh, okay.
interrupted you, but they're good and I want to make sure we get to all of them.
Yeah, and then require all employees to provide 1 hour of sick pay leave for every 30 hours worked. This is less than a full work week. Employers would be paying 16-year-olds sick pay. And then if a county or municipality official decides to shut down their county or city due to a pandemic, of all things,
Mhm.
the employer would be required to pay sick leave to the employee during the pandemic. How does this work? I mean,
Mhm.
you don't have income coming in, and then 16-year-olds getting sick pay. I mean, seriously, it's just, and they don't have to have an excuse
Right.
like for 2 days. The only time that you are required a note is if that's 3 days or more. So people can just take advantage of this. And it isn't even a full work week. Like I said, it's 30 hours.
Right.
So you get 1 hour sick leave for 30 hours. And why is this just affecting businesses 15 employees or more? But no, it isn't. It does affect everybody, but it's a different rate for people under 15 employees. But if you have, so why is the magic number 15? Why is it not 100
Yeah.
employees? Why is it affecting? Because this is not a business friendly prop at
Right.
all. Okay. And then it'll allow the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to provide oversight and enforcement. So this will allow municipalities to set up ordinances, rules, regulations to investigate businesses to make sure they are complying. These are unelected officials
Mhm.
acting like a Gestapo leader against small business. This is just government. To me, it's government overreach. And
Absolutely.
also, they're saying that this could open the doors for even lawsuits against employers,
Uh-huh.
and there's nothing an employer can do. And then the other point, exempt government entities, political subdivisions, school districts, and educational institutes. Again, why is the government exempt?
Yep.
Why the government won't feel this burden that businesses will feel? And then it also says state government entities will estimate one-time costs ranging from 0 to 53,000 and ongoing costs ranging from 0 to at least 256,000 by year 2027. And state and local government tax revenue could change by an unknown annual amount. Well, I did an example. So if you have one employee that goes from making $12.30 to $15 and they work 40 hours a week, that's an increase for one employee, $5,600. If the time, and then if you take that and you have 30 employees, that's an increase of $168,480 per year, just for the minimum wage. But then people have to think about there's additional insurance premiums paid by
Uh-huh.
employers. And then we, as an employer, double the Social Security and Medicare tax
Mm-hmm.
because we have to match that. So that's going to double or go up. And, so consumers are going to end up paying more for everything.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And
that's
that's what I wanted to talk about too. These people who are working a minimum wage and they just think, yeah, it's going to increase my pay. What I what they're just being naive or dumb, but it's also when your pay goes up, that means the business that is paying your salary or your hourly wage also has to increase whatever
right.
they're
Right.
selling so that way they can compensate. Otherwise, a lot of business owners aren't just raking in the dough. I mean,
No,
especially restaurant owners, it takes a
probably.
long time to make
Yep.
anything off of a
Right.
restaurant.
It really does. I mean, I have seen since minimum wage has been going up like it has, I mean, drastic. And this will more than double the federal minimum wage.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've taken a hit as business owners. And I mean, it's like, so what are we just working to employ? I mean, we
Yeah,
have 70
exactly.
employees between our two restaurants, 70. I mean, and that's going to cut. I mean, you're going to try to figure out ways, automation, you're going to try to figure out ways just to cut that because you have a budget,
Mm-hmm.
and the government and all these people that really, I mean, you have a UCLA professor. He's never probably owned a business.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these people that are working for the Justice League and all that, how do they know unless they've experienced and are employing people? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
I know the burden and just, the sweat. I mean, business owners are not wealthy like everybody says. You have a lot of Democrats saying, oh, well, business owners can afford it, blah, blah, blah. No,
Mm-hmm.
you can't. I mean, we don't have a money tree.
Right.
I definitely don't,
Right.
and then there was some research about California, because they just raised the minimum wage to $20 on fast food,
Uh-huh.
which is interesting because Newsom was he exempted any fast food that made bread because he's part owner in Panera out there.
Are you
So, he, yeah, he exempted Panera bread because they make bread, but everybody else had to raise it to $20. And here's what's happened. 98% have raised menu prices. 89% have reduced hours. 73% have limited employee shift pickups or overtime opportunities. And 70% have reduced staff or consolidated positions. Because, and then you think about automation.
Yep.
It's like you're going to have to try to figure out ways to cut employees and cut hours. So you'll limit your times you're open. You'll limit people answering phones and make everything just go to online,
Yeah.
So that's just ways to, for owners to try to cut, wages. And then here's another thing. Raising the minimum wage would increase housing and consumer good costs for everything and greatly disadvantage minimum wage workers. So and this is a quote that I took out of, I forget what paper it was. Most minimum wage employees work for small firms in competitive markets. These companies have small profit margins. They can only pay higher wages if they raise prices. Customers, not business owners, pay the cost.
Yeah.
For example, NBC News found that the price of a cup of coffee went up 10 to 20% in Oakland, California, after a 36% minimum wage hike, while coffee prices in Chicago rose 6.7% after the minimum wage rose just to $10. I mean, we're talking $15.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and up. I mean, and people laugh when I say we could have $30 minimum wage. No,
Yeah.
this is legitly
Right.
This could happen.
Right.
I mean, when is enough enough? I
Right.
mean, $40, $50. Don't, I
Right.
just don't, and so many states, are putting this on the ballot, but a lot of states too are still even at federal minimum wage, which is 7.25, and so anyway, this is just a crazy, crazy, insane. It's crazy. This proposition is just, I mean, I've never seen anything like it,
Yeah.
and really, I mean, if you love freedom, which we're supposed to in America, raising the minimum wage and instead of allowing the free market to determine an appropriate rate,
Yep.
this will decrease employee compensation and force businesses to close, use automation, and also outsource jobs,
Right. Excuse me.
anyway.
There's so much in here, but I want to go back to like the very
Okay.
foundation, um that the Constitution does not give authority to any federal government agency to dictate minimum wage in the first place. So the fact that there is even a federal minimum wage is unconstitutional because the founder
Right.
said unless we explicitly give the government the authority to do it, they don't have the authority to do it. So I just
Right.
I mean, I completely agree with you. There should be free market with
Right.
pay, and businesses should be able to decide what they're going to pay their employees based on their work ethic. And if
Right.
they even show up for work, because that's what I hear from employers all the time now in this generation that has come up is like, we can't find people that show up. That's why you
That,
have a lot of fast food businesses and other places that say, we'll pay you the day you work because they don't know if they're going to get someone to actually come into work the next day. So they just have to keep paying them as soon as they come into work.
I crazy. I mean, it really is. And COVID just opened the eyes of so many business owners too. I mean, to what was going on. When St. Louis County was shut down, it really, I mean, it hurt so many business owners and so many restaurant owners. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, and a lot of what started doing automation, a lot of them started doing delivery because delivery, if you
Oh,
delivered, you
right.
were able to stay, and it was a really,
Yeah.
it was a really weird time. And then with the government handouts just so freely, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of that has now shut down. So it is easier now to get employees. I mean, but for a few years, it was just like, where are all the employees? But
Mm-hmm.
it was because of so many government handouts being given.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's as many going on now, but
Right.
which is
Right.
forcing people back into the labor market. But this is not going to help. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, oh, well, this will drag people out of poverty. No, because really prices will just start going
Mm-hmm.
up and you'll be right back where you are. And then neighboring states that have more business friendly policies, they're the ones that are going to keep prospering, and Missouri is going to just fall behind. And like you said, people that are moving here,
Right.
they're just, yeah. So,
Yeah, so I was looking up the consumer price index because that's what in section 2 of this article says that, that basically that's how they're going to decide how much minimum
mhm.
wage is going to go up. And like you said, that's already been in place.
Right.
So it's the consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. And so I was looking that up. And if I'm understanding correctly, and please help me out if you know, basically the consumer price index goes off of what people have paid for housing, utilities,
Right.
food, all of that stuff, right? And
That's
so,
I,
what was that?
that's how I understand it also.
Yeah, and so then there's obviously been several percentage increases over the past year. I think it actually said in the last 12 months, it has increased 2.2%. I don't totally understand all of the numbers, but basically, if it's saying that your minimum wage is going to go off of what the consumer price index is, and the consumer price index continues to raise, then
Right.
it's going to raise the minimum wage, which would then
Right.
raise how much things cost. So that raises the consumer price index, and then that raises
Exactly.
the minimum wage. And it's just like, it's literally just this ridiculous, insane cycle. Like
It
you
is.
said, it's never going to be enough.
No, it will never be enough. And it's like, when do we stop this merry-go-round? I mean, seriously. I mean, I remember like just since 2017 when minimum wage was like $8 and something. And we always had employees working,
Mm-hmm.
always. People were getting, raises and happy and stuff like that. And now, so you're saying, so people are saying that, okay, we'll raise it to 15 and this will make everybody happy. No, I have not seen that. I have
Right.
not seen in any business. It's actually worse. People feel like they're entitled to more and not working as
Yep.
hard. And it's just like, but that's that whole socialist idea, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you were saying the guy, Richard von
Va- Von Klon,
von Glahn.
Von Glon,
Okay.
GLA.
Okay. So you've researched him a little bit. Do you feel like he has some kind of a socialist agenda with this?
I don't know. I don't know if he was just hired by a Soros
Mm.
organization, but like I said, he is a labor activist and he's the policy director for Missouri Jobs with Justice. So he teaches Chinese monetary also. I mean, he's been doing this for his whole life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even I was looking up even his graduate degree and stuff like that was in Chinese history and specifically in Chinese monetary system, so
Hmm.
just like, so you're wanting to bring their monetary system, which they're communist, to America. And so you're going to bring that to Missouri a little.
Yeah.
No, I
Which
mean, we're supposed to be like a red state that are pro business, but this is totally against that. Totally.
Right. Well, and I mean, what just flashed in my head too was a social credit score, like
Right.
trying to bring that kind of
Agenda.
economy into Missouri as well, which I know is happening. A lot of people don't realize that, but it is.
Right. Yeah. It's scary. I mean, it really is. To me, this is very scary. And people in Missouri just don't understand that. They just see, ooh, minimum wage increase, but
Yeah.
they're not taking to all the factors, just like in 2018. And literally, I have been in Jeff City talking to senators and congress people for the last 7 years, or yeah, 7 years before
Mhm.
this even went into effect, trying to, do you guys realize what's going on? Do you understand what's going on in Missouri? Can't you guys do something? But everybody's afraid. There was a guy that's running for, he's running for Congress in Missouri. And he goes, and I brought this up at a meeting. He goes, well, what am I going to tell my union people? I'm like, you're going to tell them the truth.
Right.
This is not good for Missouri. Yeah. I mean, you want to work in Missouri? Well, you have to have a business friendly Missouri. And this is not going to make Missouri business friendly. This is the opposite of
Right.
business pro. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hear that talking point a lot from certain candidates that, oh, we're going to do all these things to bring businesses to Missouri and increase jobs and yada yada. And it's like, well, you're doing that on one side and then you're handicapping us on the other side. So it's really not going to go both ways. Like you said, if there's a
no.
business that's looking to move somewhere, they're not going to move to the state where they're
Mm-mm.
required to pay an outrageous minimum wage and all of the paid sick stuff. I was
Yeah.
looking at that section, and the whole entitlement attitude really drives me nuts. But the language in this says, earn paid sick time as provided in this section shall begin to accrue at the commencement of employment or May 1st, 2025, whichever is later. An employee shall be entitled to use earned paid sick time as it is accrued. An employer may provide all earned paid sick time that an employee is expected to accrue in a year at the beginning of the year. Is that normal that you would pay some, or like you would give someone their sick leave for the entire year before they've even worked for it? Is that what this is saying?
That I'm not sure. That it sounds like it, but I have not researched that enough to know, because the language is so convoluting, and even those that have kind of studied this more, that have I mean that
Mm-hmm.
are really studying this, that they're even saying that the wording's so convoluting, people, business owners don't even understand that. And then how do you keep track of this?
Right.
So, if you do your own books, which I hire a company to do it. I mean, hire a company to keep track of payroll. I actually pay my own bills and stuff like that, but we do
Mm-hmm.
hire a payroll. So what is that payroll company going to charge us? Is this going to even up that fee? And then how do you keep track of this? I mean, so if somebody wants so they accrue 5 hours. So, you know, yeah. And is this for just part-time and part-timers too? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we hire just part-timers. So if all part-timers are going to be eligible for this, I mean, you give sick pay and you give vacation time to your best employee, your managers. You don't, not everybody gets these benefits,
No.
and it's just like, so how do you reward people? How do you reward people
Right.
for doing an outstanding job? It takes away all of that. It's almost like the 2030 agenda. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you will own nothing and you will be happy. You will pay everybody what we tell you to pay and be happy. I mean, that's
Right.
how I look at this.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
and just all of the language in this, how it keeps going into telling the employer what they can and can't do and what
right,
they will and won't do, and all of this. It's so frustrating to me, especially because none of this applies to government. And that's the
right.
only people that they should be regulating is themselves. And instead, they completely exempted themselves and they're mandating all of this stuff on private businesses. That I just,
Right. Well, and I
ugh.
even contacted the Secretary of State office, and I asked them, I go, is this even a legitimate bill or proposition to be put on the ballot? I go, there's more than one,
Mm-hmm.
initiative actually in this prop. And, and they couldn't give me a straight answer. They kept referring me to some other division. And then that division, I'd call them. And then they'd go, you need to call Secretary of State. I talked to one of the attorneys there. They were going to get back to me. They never got back to me. So nobody's willing to take the blame for this either, to be on the ballot. I'm
Mm,
like, did you check all the signatures? I mean, I've questioned all of this, because it's like, how could this get on there? I just,
mm-hmm.
I mean, how could this get on there without, because you see people in parking lots just getting signatures. Has every signature been validated? And I think 6 out of the 8 districts had enough signatures. But my question is, again, was every signature validated?
Right.
Or did they validate just a percentage of that and say, well, if we go by percentages, then yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
So I think the whole thing, our whole system right now, I don't agree with things that are going on in the system to get things and that's why initiative petition was so important
Mm-hmm.
to
It
get on
was. Yeah.
and
And
pass. They didn't do it, and now we have all these amendments to our constitution. At least
mm-hmm.
this is a proposition. It can be changed around,
Right.
but will they have the guts in Congress to do anything about it?
Yeah.
Because they want to keep their jobs, but you're not going to have a job if you don't have a tax base, and you don't,
Right.
you know, how are you going to even afford it, even though the government is exempt from this?
Right.
So I'm like,
Right.
I
Yeah. And
makes no sense.
also, there was another part of this that really struck me. And again, maybe this is normal. It doesn't sound like it, but it says when a different employer succeeds or takes the place of an existing employer, all employees of the original owner who remain employed by the successor employer are entitled to all earned paid sick time they accrued when employed by the original employer. And it goes on. Okay, so again, it's not even just like whatever business it was. If someone comes in and takes over the business, they're still mandating that. Does that sound
I
normal?
That is not normal either, because we've bought businesses. But normally what a business owner will do, they'll buy a business, but they're just buying the business itself. Like they're buying the equipment,
Right.
they're buying, you know, you're usually getting rid of that old LLC or, corporation or whatever. You're getting rid of that because you don't want to be tied to that, and you're starting your own new corporation. And most business owners will go in and they might keep some, but they'll either rehire the employees that were there, or they'll just say, I'm starting over and I'm getting all new employees. So that
Hmm.
in itself is just not, that doesn't seem right either. So now you can't even sell your business to whoever you want, and they have to take over your corporation. That doesn't make sense, because if there were bad things in that corporation, you don't want that. If they were tied to lawsuits, or if they were tied to not paying taxes, I mean, so is that all included in there too? I don't know.
I
I mean,
know.
yeah, that seems very, very strange to me, that would even be, that language would be in there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the whole thing is, like you said, government overreach.
Yeah.
And especially, knowing who's backing this and who's funding it and pushing it, it makes perfect sense. But I really
Yeah.
hope that the Missouri people and any other state that stuff like this is happening, which I know it's happening all over, but I really hope that the
Right.
people of Missouri wake up and realize what's actually going on, and it's not going to
Right.
benefit. It's not going to benefit any of us. Maybe
No.
in the first couple weeks as you have a little bit more money, okay, maybe you'll have a little bit more money, but guess what? That money is going to go right back out because the consumer
Right.
price index is going to go up, and then ugh.
I mean, because, people that own, like, rent will go up.
Yep.
I mean, if you pay childcare and you're in a private childcare, like a private school or church or something like that, that's going to go up because it's going to affect them. And I don't think churches and pastors and private schools, they don't understand this is going to affect them too. I mean, even though you say you're a nonprofit, that's going to affect you too. This will affect everyone. This is not just going to be corporations and LLCs. This is going to affect anybody that hires or employs anyone in any capacity, unless you're a government entity or a public school. So like I said, it's not fair. Why would it not affect everybody and just affect, just business owners? Why does this not affect the government? Why does this not affect
Right.
public schools? I mean, to me, right there should be a big question mark on the validity and why this is even on the ballot, you know,
Yeah,
and
I
why
absolutely agree.
allow put on the ballot. I mean, I feel like the Secretary of State did not do their due diligence either. I
I
mean, if
agree.
you if you go by what is supposed to be allowed, it's a 1 point initiative, not these 9 pages, not like the marijuana bill that was 30, what was it, 32 pages?
Mhm.
I mean, this is crazy. Who has time to research this? I mean, I barely have time to research all these points. I did what I could. I mean, I
Right.
looked up, organizations that are doing research and kind of look and see what they're saying.
Right.
But people don't have time. I work. I
I
work a
know.
full-time job. I have kids. I
I know.
mean,
And honestly, I I think that's the whole point. They know that people aren't going to be able to take the time to research it. I completely agree, and I don't have trouble saying I think the Secretary of State has completely failed the Missouri people this ballot cycle. I mean, we have 5 amendments, and a few of them are multi-subject. So,
right.
like you're saying,
And
and then Amendment 2 is the same way. It's, I think, 7 or 8 pages long.
right. I mean, it's just, I'm with you. I hope Missourians really, really think about this and just vote the right way and
Mm-hmm.
vote no. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm praying. I mean, it's just really, really going to be bad on our economy. And I mean, I even told my husband, I was like, gosh, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, minimum wage going up every year is a problem, but what are we going to do if it does this? I mean, every business owner that I know is questioning this. What are we going to do? How
Yeah.
many businesses are going to go out of business? I mean, look, California, again, I go to California. I mean, $20 minimum wage doesn't seem that far fetched, but it's just like their restaurants are going to be hit the hardest.
Yep.
And, and we probably hire the most entry level positions, 16-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
their first jobs, they're getting their feet wet, they're still in school. And I mean, it's great. You love that you're able to kind of teach them a work ethic and just kind of being on time and doing a good job and getting paid for that and stuff like that. But this is going to knock them out of the job market too, because you're
Right.
like, well, if I'm going to have to pay
Yeah.
$15, I want somebody that at least has experience. And like I said, my friend who her sister-in-law is actually
Mm-hmm.
disabled, she's going to be knocked out of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So all these, wage earners that are helping businesses, it's like, and then prices of food. Everybody's like complaining about inflation and grocery prices in Missouri. What is this going to do to Missouri prices? It's
Right.
just really,
Yeah.
I don't know. And can you go backwards? I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, can we go back to just realistic ideals and with minimum wage and abolish it in Missouri and just say, listen, we're going back to the federal minimum wage. We're here now,
Mm-hmm.
but this is going to give you freedom
Mm-hmm.
to pay what you can and have a realistic approach to minimum wage. I mean, minimum wage was started in 1932, I think it was, or
Yes.
1933.
Yeah.
And it like women mostly, and kids. And then in 1937, I think then in Oklahoma, it affected men. But yeah, it's just, and the whole history of minimum wage is too kind of crazy.
Right.
I've heard a couple of people talk about that, and I mean, it was to keep, I heard this, that it kept people to stay in the South and not go up to the North because the Northerners didn't want the Southerners coming up and working in the North. I don't know. I mean, these are just things I've heard.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
The thought is like, okay. So,
So I'm curious, since you do employ a lot of minimum wage type positions,
yes.
have you heard complaints? I mean, I know a lot of times employees don't express those things around owners, but have you
Right.
heard complaints from employees, either yours or other employees, talking about how they wish minimum wage was higher? Or is it, I mean, because all that I normally hear is how much the price of everything is. I don't
Right.
usually hear most minimum wage people saying, I wish minimum wage was higher, because they understand this is an entry level job, and in order to make
Right.
more, I have to work my way up. Or at least that's how people used to
No,
think.
exactly. I mean, I never hear the employees saying that. I mean, you might have one here and there, but they don't really say it to me. And I've actually talked to a couple of our managers and I'm like, do you guys understand this? And they're like, totally get it. They understand because you're telling the managers, you're like, okay, payroll percentages, you got to keep it within this if we're going to make,
Mm-hmm.
because the only thing, as in a restaurant, the only thing you can control is food costs and what you're paying your
Right.
employees, right? So you got to keep those within a certain percentage. And if you don't, then it's just like you're not going to make any money at all. So why keep the doors open?
Mm-hmm.
And again, in California, there's a lot of chains that are going out of business.
Yeah.
And heard even White Castles, they said if it goes up to $15, that they're going to have to close some of their businesses
Mm-hmm.
and operations. So it's just like, this is going to destroy jobs. I
Right.
mean, I don't care what the proponents are saying. If they're not in the workforce, if they are not employers, they don't understand what this will do. And even people that have been elected to office,
Mm-hmm.
if you've never owned a business, you have no idea, no clue of what it takes to run a business. I've
Right.
been doing this. Like I said, my husband and I, we've been doing this since '88. We've always owned our own business. And I mean, and there's more regulations, there's more rules. It was so much easier to start a business back in '88 than it is
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, it
Yeah.
is, and just the regulations that and the loopholes and the fees and everything that you have to pay now. It's just harder and harder and harder to make a profit,
Yeah.
and it, I just, so those that say, oh, we have 450 businesses that signed on to this, I'm like, I'd like to see which businesses they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
None of the small independent business owners that I have talked to, they think this is a crazy idea,
Right.
you know?
Well,
So,
and again, I mean, I don't think that's by accident that they're, you know, the powers that be that do not want small business to succeed, they want people reliant on the government. And the best way to do that is put small businesses out so that way people don't have jobs, or the small business has to lay a lot of people off. You don't have a job. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to the government to help you out. And then it just creates more and more people who think that they need the government to survive.
exactly. That's exactly right. And it's just like, I, when I think about this, I'm just like, so when is this going to end?
Mm-hmm.
When are people going to realize that the government cannot give me what I need? I need to work. Well, I have another example. So we had an employee that's actually been on disability for years.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's autistic, but he's highly functional and he
Mm-hmm.
lives on his own. He's super intelligent. And he's been trying to beg his one parent to let him off a disability so he can work more. Because when the government gives you money like disability or something like that, you're only allowed to make so much. So for years he's been begging his mom or to get him off. Finally, like just a month or two ago, she got him off a disability. He is so happy because
Oh,
now he can work as much as he wants, can make as much as he wants, and he is happy. I mean, he told my husband, he goes, I'm so happy now.
that's
Because
wonderful.
he's free from the government. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to rely on them for anything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
I mean,
great.
I've seen it on both sides what government interference does,
Right.
government interference in the business. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's out of control. It's
Yeah.
just really out of control. And here in America, we're supposed to be free, freedom loving, be creative. This stops creativity too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're thinking, okay, what kind of business can I start that I don't have to hire anybody?
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh,
So
yeah.
I mean, small businesses, I don't know what the latest statistic, but at one time, maybe a couple of years ago, small businesses hire 90% of the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, it's uncapitalistic, I
Yeah.
mean, we're a capitalist society that we want, to be able to create jobs. We want to create businesses that hire people and give people employment opportunities. And this is just totally against that.
Right. Yeah. And it also just makes me think too, my brother-in-law was talking to us once about tip percentage. And,
Mm.
when I started off waitressing back in the early 2000s, it was, like 10, 15%. It was about what you would make. I mean, it was right around 15% was like a good tip, right? And
Right.
that was fine. I mean, that was what was doable for most people, and I was fine getting a 15% tip. And now it's like that's not even an option on the little tip calculator to give 15%. It starts
Yep.
at 18%. Sometimes it
Right.
starts at 20%. And
Yep.
it's the
Yep.
same kind of thing that it's like and obviously tipping is voluntary, but there's no cap. It's just so who's going to say, okay, this is the percentage that we're going to stop at? Otherwise, it's just going to continue to go up and up and up. I mean, it's gone from 10% to 22% in
Right.
basically 12 years. So what's going to stop it from going up to 30% and 40%? And then, then it's
Gonna go
like,
out to gonna go out to eat, and then it's just like, and then people that have to tip to pick up food. I
right.
mean, tipping was supposed to be for a service,
Yes.
you know, just like, so is McDonald's going to start adding tips? Is all these, fast food? I mean, anywhere you go now, everybody's charging tips, and
Right.
it's just like, and I even get frustrated. I'm like, oh my gosh, you did not do
I
one
know.
thing. You put a thing in a bag and gave it to me.
I know.
And and I hate to even say that, because I mean, it's on our register too, but it's just because we have delivery drivers, so
Hmm.
automatically you can't change the pickups from the delivery drivers. It's just like, it's in the system, and you can't really change that if somebody's going to pick something up. But if somebody wants to give a gratuity, I mean, our employees are glad
Yeah.
glad to take it, but it's not expected,
Right.
and it's like, but it is crazy. I mean, yeah, I just don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how our country is going to keep going down this path and be successful. I mean,
Hmm.
I really don't. It's just, I mean, I grew up when minimum wage was $2.50,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not that long ago. I mean,
Right.
seriously,
Right.
it's just really in the last 20 years that minimum wage has just come to the forefront to keep increasing. I guess the government has found a way to make people more dependent on them, including
Yep.
businesses. Like, how do you, I mean, once they see this, then, oh, let's just keep raising it. And George Soros backing all this stuff. I
Yes.
mean, almost $2 million in donations. I mean, from Soros backed organizations. I'm just like, why does he even have a say?
Yes.
A say state? Why does he even have a say? So they're raising all this money to do advertisements and stuff like that. I mean, business owners don't have extra cash to throw into,
Hmm.
opposing this. It's like educating yourself and trying to educate people around you.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, I mean, I just, every time I bring up, I go, they'll all say, the amendments that are on there. And I go, have you heard about Prop A? Have you heard about
Yeah.
Prop A?
Yep.
Everybody's like, I don't know what that is. What is it? And I'll tell them. They're like, you got to be kidding.
Hmm.
Especially when I explain how it's going to affect
Right.
the cost of living here in Missouri. I
Right.
mean, it's really going to affect the cost of living here in Missouri for everything you pay for.
Yeah, I
Oh.
completely agree. It needs to have a hard no. So I will definitely be sharing the show, and I will make sure to get you a link so you can share it, cuz the education has to get out. And that's what we're finding with most of the amendments is as soon
Hmm.
as people are actually educated on what it is, it's like 8 times out of 10 they're opposed to it. And I
Right.
think it'll be the same with this one because it just takes a little bit of common sense
Right.
and you understand then what the unintended consequences of this will be, or sometimes intended consequences.
Right. And it's basic economics. If,
Yeah.
you know, if you've studied any kind of economic, you know that there's only, you have those that are providing jobs and providing the money, and then you have those that are paying for it. And where's that happy medium, and that's pretty much what economics teaches you. Like, how much can you raise the price of something before people stop patronizing you? I mean, restaurants can only raise their prices so much before people won't be spending money there. And like you said, if tips go up to 30, 40%, and that's expected, who's going to
Mm-hmm.
eat out? And then if you only give 10% or 15 because that's all you can afford, and you want to have a nice
Uh-huh.
night out, but you can only afford so much, and then you get snubbed,
Yep.
it's like, listen, this is crazy. It's crazy. I mean,
Right.
it's just,
Well,
it really
and
is.
yeah, like someone had pointed out, my husband had pointed out too that I mean it'll probably lead to more employers paying their employees under the table, because it's like,
Yeah.
well, if you're not if you're not on record, then we can just do what we need to do. And you can get some good hard workers that way. Also, there's an
Right.
influx of illegals coming into our country.
Right.
What do you
Right.
think's going to happen with that? Also, Donald Trump announced he's going to do no tax on tips. So then you're going to just in my mind is like, okay, so let's raise minimum wage
Right.
and so we don't want to do that.
But
Let's tell our employees they're going to all do like this server wage, but they're going to make tips. There's no tax on it's just the whole thing is going to get completely screwed up because
yeah,
the government is sticking their finger where it's not supposed to be.
right. And like, if we would just, like I said, if everybody would just go back, let's just go back to the federal minimum wage in every state. Just
Yeah.
go back to that. And then you for your own business, you do what is best. So, I mean, if you're hiring minimum wage employees at 12, I mean, we don't even start people at minimum wage right now. I
Yeah.
mean, 12.30, but you can't even start at minimum wage anymore because you have the bigger corporations. Like, we're an independent business,
Mhm.
so we're a small business owner, and it's like we can't compete like with the corporate chains. I mean, what, I don't even know Walmart, if they're starting people at $14, $15, and you
Mhm.
got all the retail chains, but this is going to affect them too. I know Walmart has even said that they're closing up some of
Yeah.
their businesses, like in California, and Target's closing. And I mean, so you have even the larger chains that are closing
Right.
businesses. So it's really going to affect retail, and it's going to affect restaurants the most. And,
Right.
it's just, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just crazy what's going on out there. And I keep questioning in my mind, when does it end? And like, and even this no tax on tips, I'm like, okay, so does that mean the employees don't pay
Uh-huh.
tax on tips, but do the employers still have
Right.
to, yeah, Social Security, Medicare? But if they're not paying any taxes, then who's paying those taxes? And
Yep.
it's like, again,
I
it's
know.
very convoluting, and nobody understands, and you're just making rules up, and you're
Yep.
making all the, it sounds like a great plan, and I would love no tax. I would love not to have to match Social Security and Medicare. How
Mhm.
much will that take? And
Yeah.
like, and here's another thing: workers' comp insurance premiums, it's based on your payroll. So it's like,
Interesting.
that's going to increase that
Yep.
cost. I mean, so everything goes up, and who's making out? Not
Mhm.
not the business
Mhm.
owners. They're just making less and less and less, till when's the point where I just can't do this anymore?
I
I got to
know.
think of something to do, and which is so sad, because it's like we have loved what we have done all these years, and it's like we want to continue to do what we do. and
Mhm.
and so many other business owners, they love what they do, and it's just like, but you're just making it like, how do you keep
Yeah.
doing this with
Yeah.
the craziness? And so I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know where that's going to go. I mean, it's just
Well,
destroying business
we'll
left and right.
just gonna we're gonna make sure and educate as much as we can, and
Yep.
we're gonna pray that people wake up and see the writing on
Right.
the walls before it's too late. Because I would like for this country to be around for as long as we're here. I mean, as
Right. Oh,
until
me
Jesus
too.
returns, I'd like for our country to
Yeah,
still be a free country. So,
exactly. Me too. I mean, I want to see my kids grow up in a
yes,
country that we set up, and just like, I want them to enjoy the privileges and just the successes, and just, and it hasn't been easy. We have failed too. I mean,
yeah,
at businesses, it isn't like we've been like, oh, just, I mean, we've opened businesses that have not made it either. And a lot of it is just because, I'll tell you another thing: frivolous lawsuits.
mm,
Like, if you look at the sick leave portion, And it will create pathways for frivolous lawsuits against employers, because the language includes penalties for retaliatory personal action. So it makes it difficult for an employer even to investigate if somebody's just using their sick leave. So,
Mm,
I mean, there's so many things, like you
right.
said, in this bill. And frivolous lawsuits are another big thing against businesses. And this just opens another avenue for frivolous lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you got to have insurance just for frivolous lawsuits. You have to have insurance just to protect yourselves if somebody says something wrong.
Oh,
So this will
yeah.
create, what else is this going to create? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
So
so true. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Kate. I think it was helpful for me. I'm sure it's going to be helpful for a lot of other people. Like I said, I'll share the link with you, but people can find the show on my YouTube channel at Nadine at 9, or on I have Substack now, which I'm still learning how to use, but I think that it pushes to the main podcast platforms. I'll have to double check that. But that's also Nadine at 9. So people can definitely find the show, share it. We have a little over 2 weeks left before the election, so this information definitely needs to get out.
yes, thank you. Thank you so much for just taking the time to, go over these amendments and these propositions, because they're very important, and they're
Absolutely.
just, people need to be educated. So I appreciate you doing that and just taking the time to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Well, everybody, there it is. The government's sticking their finger where it doesn't belong, and it's going to make everything break. So go vote. You can start voting on Tuesday. Vote no on Proposition A. And I know I have people that disagree with this, but I'm actually voting no on every single amendment, on 2, on 3, on 5, on 6, and on 7, and on Proposition A. And the week, not next week, but the next week, the next Friday, Miss A is going to come on with me, and we're going to go through the ballot. I've discussed several of the amendments leading up to this, but we're just going to go through the whole ballot because there's a lot of stuff on there, and we just want to make sure everyone's well educated. But in the meantime, if you are going to vote early and you want thoughts, recommendations, you want to bounce some ideas off of me, whatever, feel free to contact me on a YouTube channel, on Facebook, Substack, or you can also email me at nadine@9@proton.me. I'd be happy to talk to you, and we can learn together, because that's what the show is all about. So, yeah, until next time, I'm going to head out a little bit early today because I think that I've given you enough to chew on. I would actually just challenge you. Go onto the Secretary of State website. You can Google Missouri ballot initiatives, and then it'll pull up a link to go right to the Secretary of State initiative petition page. And just look at each one of them and pull up the full text of each amendment and proposition. I'm not kidding you when I say we're going to be voting on a small paragraph that's going to add, either to our Constitution or state law, multiple pages. So go look at it, see what it says, see if you can understand all of it, and then see if you think that the ballot language is sufficient and that you should vote for it or not, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal to change the Constitution. It's a big deal to add state law. And like we've talked about several times, until we get IP reform done, meaning the legislators do their job in Jeff City while they're up there, they're going to be starting in session in January again. And we have to get this IP reform taken care of, because we cannot continue to have all of these amendments we can't keep changing our Constitution. It's absolutely ridiculous. So just go on there, check out each of the amendments. I bet that you'll be very surprised at what you find. So anyway, like I said, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can always call into the show 573-746-8020, or you can find me on several different channels, like I said, or Damn Radio. Download the app, get push notifications, and you'll never miss a show again. I know that 9 a.m. on a Friday morning is sometimes a little bit difficult, so I don't blame you if you can't always make it. But yeah, there's usually some really good information that comes out. And remember, JR will be on with the big show at 2 o'clock today till 4 o'clock. And then Polly's Bomb Track Bunker will be on tomorrow, Saturday night, 8 o'clock. So tune in for that. And remember, until next time, let's not act like children.
It's time.